Hey there everyone, welcome to episode 7 of the free 3D modeling course on YouTube. If you appreciate this content, you can check out the Patreon or just subscribe and hang out. So now I've been looking at this for a while and I think we just have to start tackling the more difficult pieces. To make it a little bit easier on ourselves, we'll actually start with the front. So I'm going to look for that 3/4 angle, just make sure we can observe what we're looking at here. And as far as I know, it should be as easy as a cube. Let's see if we can go to edit mode and scale it in, scale it down, and I'll use the mirror modifier on it. So I'm going to cut it with the loop cut, select these vertices, delete them, and add a mirror. So I'm trying to observe which direction this goes out, and before I start worrying about this angle, what I want to look at are these little circular protrusions. So I'm going to lift this up more, and it seems to end at the bottom of the shell along with these vertices. We'll see how far forward we need to bring this back end up. I'll just try something like this for now and lift it up just a little bit more. Okay, so now I want to go to the front view and I'm going to add a circle. And I think I want to make this 24 vertices. If I press L on this just to select the circle itself, I can press R, X, and 90. And with clipping off, I can actually move it away from the center, and in X-ray mode we could start defining the actual serious proportions of all these. So I'll use L to select this entire box, and then I'll use Control to deselect the middle, and I can start bringing this out. Then I can bring these edges down. Now we'll bring these circles to the front. And we'll try to get a similar extrusion to what is going on at the sides here. So now we know what angle it's at, and it looks like we can actually start the height and angle of it now. So once that loop cut is there, we can bring this one in. We can add a loop cut and bring this down. I might try, just G and Z. Same for this. We'll start matching things together as best we can. We're starting with like a block out sort of proportion. So now I'll press E on this, and I'm trying to figure out how the topology will best match this. So it looks like these vertices are really close to these ones. So with the active one selected and vertex snapping on, I can start scaling it up and matching it right about there. And it looks like that's larger as well. So now I'm actually going to press F on both of these faces. So I actually want to Boolean these together instead of keeping them within the same object. So I'm going to fill up these faces. And then I'll press L and P to separate that selection. And on the cube, I'll add a Boolean modifier for a union. And I'll select our little caps. And I'll move this Boolean up and press Ctrl A to apply it. We can delete our original cylinders. And now it's joined all this geometry together. So I'm going to end up lifting these ones up. I'll press this vertex, G, and use Control to use vertex snapping. I'll do the same for just about the rest of these. So G, Z, and then let's match them. Make sure it's all scaled completely flat. So the same is applying over here, and we can go ahead and keep that as is. We'll press J on that circular extrusion. I'm going to match that vertex right here. Or actually, let's see what's best. All I want to do is make sure that all these vertices are scaled on that same axis. And that seems to be perfectly okay for now. We can even join these vertices together by pressing M, and then I'll click at last. So it's merging to that exact last one. So I'm examining the proportions. I can drag all of this down a little. And now I want to worry about these holes. So this one is also going to be a Boolean, but we'll just use a simple cylinder. So I'm going to grab a cylinder. This one's also going to be 24, and I'll press R, X, and 90. And let's see if we can shrink that down to this size. So I'll press G and Z because I'm in local. I could switch that to global, and it would be G and Y. And I'll reset that to median increment, just make things nice and resettable. So I'll examine the thickness of it. I'll set it back, and I'll press shade auto smooth on this and shade auto smooth on our main object. Let's get a Boolean, drag it above the mirror, and we'll select our cylinder. So we can already just apply it and then press X, because we don't need to be as dynamic with these ones. We could just bake them in. So I'm going to go back to X-ray mode and look at our topology. It looks like we could send a vertice up here with the knife tool. Maybe we should do it with the angle and cut, so K and C. And it went all the way back, which is what I wanted. And now we can add a loop cut down here, join the two in the back. And that loop is just making sure we maintain the general proportion of all this correctly. Just J here. So we don't need all of these n-gons to be filled, but a general directional loop will actually help keep it clean. So now I can go back to X-ray, drag this down, and press Ctrl B to bevel that, and we'll see how far this one vertice went down. We could merge these together, but for now, I'll leave that right there. And I can bevel these vertices with Ctrl B. And this is one of those situations where with a larger bevel, we can scroll up much past the original 3 and 2 that I recommended. If it's a really complex shape, go ahead and check out the difference between sharp and arc, and if it bends in a certain direction, that might be able to help you out. But like I said, most of the time I'm just checking out width and segments. But seriously, check out the difference between sharp, patch, and arc, and that's a bonus section that might be able to help you a lot. Of course, all of this gets really advanced and you can actually create extra complex shapes with this, but this is a beginner modelers course, and I just want you to be able to create an object you are proud of. We can get into optimization, retopology, UV mapping, texturing, baking, sculpting, and so many other things on this channel. You just gotta make sure, I don't know, hit the thumbs up. So really cool. So I'll observe it for a second without X-ray on, and the topology is starting to get there. However, I know for certain that I'm pretty sure these cylindrical parts would extend all the way back. So I'm going to grab this little edge face and these big faces and see if I can bring them all the way back. So instead of messing up the overlapping here, I'll go back to vertex snapping and I'll press G and Y, and they should all be in the correct spot, but I'll press A, M, and merge by distance. However, we're going to have some interior faces in here if I'm not mistaken. And if not, then it's probably something to do with the magic of n-gons. Don't try that at home. Let's just join these vertices together for a little more control, and we'll observe its form. It's looking pretty good. I am curious to see what a procedural bevel modifier will do for us here. And it doesn't look like it's going to do much to all of these angles because of the weird edges. The only ones I really do want to do it to are these large ones at the side. Part of it is probably because of that vertice, but let's go ahead and try to grab these edges, and we might have a double over here, which we do, so let's go check that out. I'll snap it, merge it, and we did remove that one successfully. So after a little bit of testing, I think our best bet to get a more protruded shape is to first get some control over the loop cut so we could bend it back, maybe even shear it. And then I'm just gonna, I added this control loop for test purposes, but I'm gonna add one and then scale the backside up, and that'll give us the nice chamfer, because I think beveling this will kind of mess up the topology. So you can get the knife once you add that control loop and just connect any edges that are missing. So I'm gonna do that right quick. We'll go to vertex mode, grab that stray, and we'll get the knife, bring it inwards, and we could always put it there for now. So the X-ray mode won't really show us the depth of this, but we could always use this part as the best reference. We'll press G and Y. And so it seems like this part goes a little bit forward. What I'll do is try to add a control loop through here. If there's an n-gon, I'll press K, and then A and C, and it'll cut all the way across. And now I can grab this and see how far I can push that forward. It seems like I would definitely need to approach this a different way because we have all these polygons up here. So with it completely flat, what I'm going to try to do is a couple things. We'll try the linear mode of proportional editing. We'll push that forward. I'll press GY on the whole model. And I think that looks pretty good. Might try to bevel that, just make one thing fancy for the sake of it. Or at the very least, I do have to make sure I mark it sharp. Let me get that nice edge now. There's not much we could do about the fussy topology over here for now. So now I can grab this face and press I to inset and E to extrude, and I'll make sure it's on the Y-axis globally. We could also add one more control loop like around here and then scale this down. And that seems to have given us a pretty nice base shape. Go to X-ray mode, grab the bottom, and then maybe with proportional editing still on, check out the perfect angle for that. Cool, and now we'll try to make a screw really quick. So let's hide everything and let's add a cylinder. This one I also don't mind being 24 in height. It looks like these also protrude outwards, right? So we're going to try that same method where we have a short ring from a cylinder, and I'll delete this top face. And what I'll do is select the ring, go to face, grid fill, and then in top view I can change the offset, get the center, and maybe I can bevel a cross shape into this. Now I can grab the center, and instead of linear, I can go with the sphere mode for proportional editing. And let's hide these original ones so we don't affect it. We'll just turn it into a sphere-like cap. Now I'll press Alt-H. We could turn off proportional editing and bring it back down. Now let's check out what we can do with this topology. I feel like it took us most of the way there. So I'm going to grab our little polygons in here that represent a screw shape, and I'll press E, and then I'll press S, Z, and 0. And for the round part of this screw, I'm going to grab all these faces, and I'm going to try to inset everything. So that helped me get some more control over this topology, and it's a good example of what you would do if you were going full subdivision, even though we aren't, but that's a great way to control your shapes. And then if I grab my ring, press SC0, let's not grab that edge, SC0, and we'll do that for each one. And I'll do SC0 for this edge ring around here too, to kind of straighten that out and scale it out a little more. Now let's hope this isn't being too fussy with the topology. What I'm noticing is it's sort of dipping inwards on the edges, so we're going to grab the edges, or just the tips of those crosses. I'll press G and Z. And that should even that out quite a bit more. And if I shade auto smooth from a distance, it's looking plenty fine. We can control the direction of these polygons with J, connect them together. And from a distance, that should be completely fine. So I'll move that forward and press Alt H. Let's find the front of our hologram and rotate it to where we need it to be. I guess I just like spinning things around, which I do. We'll scale this down. I'm going to press GY to bring this in. And while I'm not looking at my keyboard, sometimes I go GY, Z, X, Z, and then I find the right one and I bring it out. That's just part of the game. So let's look at the X-ray. And we'll try to examine, first of all, maybe what went right and what went wrong. I think what we could do is apply the mirror modifier, and I'll bring this topology inwards to match the reference better. I think that's the only main difference. So now we could take our screw, bring it in, rotate it, and we could do that for these ones as well. So they're in a pretty good spot. I'm just going to try to rotate them with individual origins mode selected and see if I could push them back in a little bit. And from our reference, they might push in a little bit more, or maybe these ones are flatter. It doesn't matter too much. So for these ones, they also seem to be at a good spot, but I would actually bring them forward. And we are making decent progress for our little awesome low poly holographic sight. Use hider cutters, we're making great progress. So the next thing we'll tackle is the guardrail and the little complex clip at the side of it. So let's get to it.
I think before we continue, we should give this front side just a little bit more polish. So I don't mind grabbing the front side, and then I'll try out the just smooth proportional editing, and I'll bring that out a little bit. Maybe I'll bring this in a little bit. And so I don't mind also repositioning these screws. And then I noticed that the front part of this is actually pretty flat. So I'm going to grab these edge loops right here. I'll press SY0 with proportional editing off. Now I'll take a decent look at this, see how we feel. Maybe I'll grab the front faces only. Just scale them in a little bit. I'll check out the silhouette. Doesn't seem like it bends that much, so we do have to still check out the front of this piece. What can we do? It looks like we can grab most of these side edges, starting from here. And let's isolate this whole object. Go out of X-ray mode. Let's get all of these faces. Then I'm going to check out the front image again. Maybe I'll get these ones as well. And it looks like what I could do is just extrude it out, scale it on the x-axis, and then scale it in like this, and just try to match it. Scaling it up on the Z. And I'm checking out what it does over here, and it looks like it's doing exactly that. It looks like we can ease out this shape a little bit by lifting it up. And then it has a little bit of a curvature down here at the bottom. So let's see if I could find that. Maybe I could scale this directly on the x-axis and bevel it. Maybe we could try to add an edge loop down here. Maybe we could try to join the vertices over here as well. I'm going to dissolve these edges. And maybe we can go ahead and delete these ones. Maybe just delete the edges. So these little edges were hidden. I'll delete those. And let's see how we could find the correct height for all this. Maybe I'll just go in between like this. And then with vertex snapping, I can capture the x-axis of that vertex, capture the x-axis of this vertex, and we're going to use F to fill in all these spaces. Maybe we'll match the height for now with this, with some Z snapping. Filling out that space. And looks like that's a decent extrusion. I think we could just grab these edges and press Ctrl B. And now we have a couple of low poly curves for that section. Checking it out again, I'll press Alt H. What I'm going to try to do to the front of this is grab the front faces on each side. So this one and these faces over here. I'm using the circle tool with the minimum super small radius to just quickly capture all those. I'll right click for loop tools and click flatten. I just wanted to make sure that that face was completely flat. And let's see what had happened here. Looks like we accidentally had those selected as well. So it's okay to Control Z. Now that's flattened. And I'll check out these faces too. And flatten those. And that's looking better. I notice the extrusion is a little too intense for what I had intended. So first I'll lift these up, scale them all, and then perhaps with the smooth version, I'll actually lower the radius and bring that down. It looks like we just have to rebalance this part a little bit more along with the side of this base. And I just want it to match a little bit better. Maybe what I'll try is something similar we did before. So I'll capture all these side faces. And I'll try to flatten these. And then I'll check out the topology without the X-ray, and then I could bring these bottom vertices back. And so we're sort of matching the shape of this a little bit better. Even if we have to take some creative liberties, we're just trying to go a little more low poly, and balancing these edges as much as I need to. And lastly, I'm just scaling these edges out so that the bevel up here has some room to breathe. And as well, like I said, I want to make sure that, and then with one more round, I'm going to make sure that all of these are flattened. So that's looking good enough for a low poly iteration of this. We have this nice extrusion on the right side, and we've done a lot of work to just make sure that it looks clean from the front. So delete these cutters. We can check out the front view. And yeah, that's looking pretty good so far. So next we're going to handle the bottom detailing. So hopefully that goes smoothly. You've been doing incredible, and I hopefully will see you in the next video.